I felt a lot going on in the unions this week, and October is that month where we're going a bit deeper. We're looking at ourselves, and we are trying to gain, a higher perspective of our journey. There's been a lot of confusion again in the energetics, trying to, look at programs of unworthiness and where we hold ourselves back from communication and expressing our truth, where we are needy or we feel that we can't be vulnerable as well. That is also coming up, and authentic in our expression. So I'm going to check in with both to see where they're at. And then any channeled messages. Again, Isis is here. Mary Magdalene is here. Aphrodite is here. Ra is also here. Osiris is here. Mary Magdalene and Yeshua are here. So you've got some. Wow, Shiva is also here. So yeah, you've got some divine masculines coming through, and you've also got the divine feminines here holding space for the unions, because this is such a powerful time, and it's really important to remember that what the masculine energy is showing you, like I do a session, and I take souls into the bottom of our spine where there's two snakes, serpents, La Luna and La Sola. La Luna is the feminine, La Luna is the feminine, La Sola is the masculine. And that's where I see the dance between the two. And sometimes I see the feminine, she's just so afraid and she's small and she's not even looking at the masculine. Then I see the masculine, this overpowering figure, almost narcissistic, controlling, and he's breathing down at her and she has no space to expand and grow. And he's taking up all the space in the yin yang energy. So he's taking up all this space and she's got no space and she's not even expressing herself. So this is where we go in and we rebalance. We rebalance the energies so that the feminine has more space. She can express herself and the masculine steps back a bit. And we find that internal balance within us. This is the same thing that's happening with the twin flames, divine unions. It's the yin yang balance. What they are reflecting to each other is the yin yang within each one, each soul. So whatever the feminine wants from the masculine, she has to go within and find this balance with her own masculine, to come back into her own sacred union. And whatever the feminine is highlighting to the masculine energy and the divine masculine, he then needs to go and speak to his own feminine energy, because that part of his feminine energy is not finding expression. So he has to go in and do that internal work. What the union is here to do is not be needy of each other, in the sense that they are whole, they are complete, they are confident in themselves, they know themselves deeply, they are one with source, they are sovereign, they are complete in themselves, and they are whole beings. And when two whole beings come together, imagine the love that can be shared between the two, where they're not dependent, they're not codependent, they're not pulling on each other's energy, then one's not depleting the other and taking from the other, but they are whole. They know how to self-regulate. They know who they are. They stand in their power. They're leaders. They're creating, with their gifts. They're sharing their abundance in the world, their gifts in the world. They know the mission. They value themselves. They are in integrity and authenticity and express themselves fully in the world. So they are in their wholeness. Then the union is like, and this is what the divine unions are here to do. Then they build their legacy together, because it's on another level. This is the 5D union, where they're operating from the soul and not from the ego. They're operating from love. They're operating from, the collective whole. Like, how can we serve together in equal balance? How can we serve the world with our gifts? So they know their gifts, they know who they are. And then there's no issue with ego. Ego doesn't come into it. And if ego does come into it, they're able to work through it and come back to love, come back to love. They'll always come back to love. And they will always have this unconditional love for each other, where, they're not fighting for the light or recognition, but they work in unison, they work in harmony, they work in balance, they create the legacy that they're here to create, and they don't overstep each other's boundaries. So right now, the unions are learning about boundaries, they're learning about self-respect, they're learning about the programs that they've played out before. So for the masculine, if he's been a player in the past and he has used his charm to attract the feminine, and he knows he's charming and he can use that to his advantage to attract what he wants, and he likes to be chased by women. He likes to be chased by the feminine. He likes how his ego feels when he feels wanted. That is dissolving right now because he's noticing himself and he's noticing how he operates from the ego. And he's actually dropping deeper into his heart. He doesn't want to attract the feminine from this shallow space. He's done that. He's been there. He's learned as well some very important lessons from that dynamic and how he was creating karma for himself by not respecting the feminine. He is stepping deeper into his heart and breathing into these programs and trying to get beyond that, the ego, trying to get beyond his ego to step into his soul self and respect the feminine more, to see the feminine in a new light and to step forward into the union with love. He's looking at his life at the moment. He's looking at the people around him. He's seeing how he's not growing in the environments he's been in. He's asking himself, how does he break free from the dynamics that he's playing out in? How he can express his true self more? How he can meet the feminine where she's at. So he feels the feminine is out of reach. He also feels the feminine is turning her back on him and walking away. So what he sees is that she's giving up on the connection and she's just walking away. She's not giving him the attention that she used to give him. She's not, fanning his ego and stroking his ego. She's kind of turned her back on the union because she's not interested in the mind games. She knows that the masculine was trying to control her and wanted it his way. And where she was needy and needing the masculine to see her and love her and look at her, she's let that go. She's let that go because she's stepping back, and she's stepping back to reflect. And now she's just focusing on her creations and where she needs to take her energy, but also loving herself more. So she's focusing on herself. She's focusing on her own self. She's looking at her own needs, and she's looking at where she isn't fully showing up in her wholeness, and she's aligning herself with her higher self. So that's really important, that what the feminine is doing, but she's also staying in the balance, so that, I talked about this in the last video, that as she stays balanced in her wholeness, not needy, not chasing the masculine energy, just standing still in her presence, in the now moment, focusing on herself, focusing on her mission, focusing on her desires, focusing on her connection with source. The masculine that was very erratic, coming in, out, popping in, popping out, popping in, popping out, not really talking, not communicating, gaslighting, breadcrumbing, ghosting, disappearing for a long time, then popping in to trigger the feminine or just see if she's still interested, and disappearing. She's like not playing that game. She's like, if that's how you want to behave, continue. But I'm not playing into that dynamic. So she's still staying still. And this is how I still see her. Sometimes she wants to step in, but then she pulls herself back because she knows she has to stay here in her balanced, peaceful presence. And then the masculine will start to come back. The energy will start to come back. And at some point, he will be willing to have this mature conversation where they can communicate. And yeah, communication is absolutely key in this union so that they can start to understand each other, become more vulnerable, have those conversations, and they will understand that the love is so deep here. But how do they navigate this union in the physical world? Because they're here to create a new model. They're here to bring a higher model of relationships to the earth. So they have to sit, they have to see the dynamics on earth and how relationships are playing out. And they don't want to experience that same relationship because it's full of ego battles, power struggles. They've both experienced betrayals and heartbreaks and narcissism and control and mind games. They don't want to do that. And that's why they both fear the connection, because they don't want to step into something that's going to hurt them again. But their role here on earth as unions, as divine counterparts, is to bring this third dynamic, they're to come together and create this third dynamic, this new hologram of relationships from a higher space, working with source, working in unison, and coming together to create a more harmonic hologram of relationships. That's their entire role. So they can't look at their old relationships and think that that's going to play out again, because they're being called to step into a higher space, and their soul selves to bring in a new hologram of relationships. How do we relate? How does the soul relate? How do we go beyond the boundaries and the constructs and the limitations of the 3D world, where it's no longer about religion, culture, creed, age, no hierarchy, none of that. It's about soul to soul, heart to heart connection. How can we build this frequency of love that we carry in our hearts without being in fear, without trying to control or manipulate this connection, but just being in this harmonic resonance, finding harmony with each other while staying in our own power. And this is what they're trying to figure out. But they have to do this within themselves first, with their own inner masculine and inner feminine. They have to find that balance where there's sometimes it'll be like this, sometimes it'll be like this, sometimes it'll be like this, sometimes it'll be like this. But they're learning to find this balance and have this connection and communication within their own masculine and own feminine energy. And this is really, really important. This is absolutely key. We have to do that work inside to see it on the outside. Okay, so the masculine feminine is playing out in everywhere in the world. And really the energy is about coming into that inner union, that circle, the yin yang. If we don't have a healthy ego, if we don't have any ego, my dad always told me, be humble in life. Be humble. And so I was. I had no ego. I was completely humble. But you need a healthy ego. Otherwise, what you do is, if you have no ego, you attract everyone's big ego. You attract people around you that got big egos, and then you have to deal with the narcissistic, controlling, manipulative, hierarchical characters that are trying to push you down into your box because you don't have any ego. So you need to have a healthy ego so that you can stand up and create healthy boundaries. You can speak up for what you need, and then you won't attract those big egoic people into your life. They'll be more balanced. But you have to be more balanced, so then you attract more balanced people. So it's about inner balance that you're learning and aligning with, and also finding the inner union within your own masculine and your own feminine. This is absolutely key for the unions. Self-mastery, and then you master the union together. The feminine is, she tends to be the more evolved one in the connection. She's already on her path, and she's already sharing her wisdom and doing her light work on the planet. And this can make the masculine feel quite insecure, like, what can I offer her? She seems like she's got everything going for her. She doesn't need me. What can I offer the union? But he's here to bring his own gifts through. He's here to step into his own leadership. He's not to doubt this connection, but to show up for it in his own unique way, and not to come from a place of lack, but to know that there is something he has to offer the union, and to be curious about that, and to explore himself, and to understand what it is that he needs to bring to this union, because he absolutely does. And right now he's showing the feminine, where she needs to come back into her wholeness, any areas that are fragmented still that she needs to reclaim and balance. And she's doing the same for him. She's showing him the areas where his wounds are still flaring up. So his abandonment wound is still coming up. It's very highly triggered right now. He fears that the feminine, as she moves away from him, or he feels that she's moving away from him because she's not giving him the attention that she used to. His rejection wound is coming up. So he's afraid that if he approaches her with his heart, she's just going to turn around and say she's not interested. So that is a fear of his rejection. And his childhood neglect is coming up. So abandonment wound is really high right now for the masculine. Like he's feeling abandoned by the feminine. He feels she's gone cold on him. She's not giving him the attention that she was giving to him before. But she's just tired of the games. She's tired of the games, and she knows that this cycle is not going to, it's not going to work. Like this isn't it. So you have to break it down and start again on a higher frequency. So if there's this push-pull, constant energy, you have to let it go. You have to completely let it go. Surrender the energy, release it, and then go back into introspection. Go back and balance yourselves, and then come and approach it on a higher level and start again. This time, more communication, more authenticity, more vulnerability, more openness. We approach it from a new frequency because it's not working at this frequency. There's push pull, there's push pull. So we step away, we go and do our own work, and then we come in at a higher level. And this is what they're going through right now. They're pulling away. They're realizing that this game is just draining them both. It's creating confusion and conflict in the mind and protection, self-protection. And there's no love. They're suffocating the love, actually. They're suffocating the love with the overthinking. The masculine is suffocating the love with the overthinking because he's thinking too far into the future, and he's thinking about how they're going to have a relationship in the future and how that's going to look. But he needs to be present in the now moment and remember the love that he feels for his divine feminine. That's the most important thing. He's got to connect with the love that he feels for the feminine. This is not a human-like relationship. This is a 5D relationship, which means it's on a soul level. So if you're in your ego and your overthinking mind, you're not connected to the union. You're not connected to the union from the right frame of mind and also the right frequency, because this is a frequency of the soul. So you've got to get from here to here and approach it from here, which is love. And then you're in the correct frequency from the soul. And that's where the souls can then connect, meet, communicate, step into authenticity, into vulnerability, and have this communication and start to build. But if we're here, we're suffocating, we're strangling, we're controlling, we're manipulating, we're playing the mind games, and we're suffocating the love because we've gone into the overthinking mind that just compresses and squeezes the love out. And then there's just nothing left. It's just like, it just becomes a battle. And it has become a battle of the minds and control. And so it's like, step back, take a deep breath, unions, take a deep breath, step back, get back to yourself, get back to peace. Take some deep breaths, get back to your center, let it go, just completely let it go. What's meant for you will never pass you by. What's meant for you will never pass you by. So if you know that this union is meant for you, you can just relax and surrender the mind and go back to the love that unites you and the love that actually helped you find each other when you sent out that clarion call to spirit and to each other through the ethos and the ethers. It's interesting they said ethos, through the ethers, to each other, to meet and come into union in the physical, to remember the magic and the manifestation that you've actually created and anchored. Now you're both in the physical world. How can you now navigate this towards the soul's truth and the 5D relationship and union that you're being guided to create at this time? With each other, through each other. And you can't do that without communication. You can't do that without communication. You can't build a new hologram of love if you cannot even communicate with each other. So, take a deep breath, get back into your heart, and then open the lines of communication once you're balanced. That is absolutely key. Yeah. The moon is coming out. We're moving into the moon energy this week. But the moon is coming out. So, listening to your intuition, listening to your intuition, listening to your heart, listening to spirit, and where spirit is guiding you in this connection. Yeah, your intuition is key, and listening to your higher guidance, because that higher guidance is coming in. So listen deeply, trust what your heart is telling you, trust what your soul is telling you, and listen to that voice, because that is the voice that's going to lead you to anchor this union here in the physical, not the mind. Not the mind. Remembering you are a magician and you can co-create with spirit and the divine to bring in, this union. To remember that you are a creator, you're not a victim. So to step into creator mode. So every time you go into victim with this union, you got to step back and you got to get yourself back into creator mode. And that's when you become a cosmic magician, because then you're attracting the energy that you desire. So come from this space, magician energy, not the victim energy, where everything's happening to me. Building, just see how far you've come, but also you're here to build a legacy together, to build solid foundations. And the foundations have to be built with trust, loyalty, communication, consistency. If you want something to grow in the physical world, you have to nurture it, you have to water it, you have to give it the energy that it needs. So whether you're doing that mentally, emotionally, in the 5D, in the heart space, you have to nurture this connection and build it and send love to it so that it can grow. Because that also will help you to anchor a solid foundation where then they both can come back into union. It's absolutely key. Yeah, a lot of overthinking in the mind has been going on through this time. The masculine has really been, they've both been in their mind, overthinking the union, and that's where they've gone into the head. And this union, this bond is here in the heart. So you got to get out of the head, calm the mind and get back to the heart. And this is where then you'll connect back with each other. Yeah, the masculine knows that she is his Queen of Cups. She is his wish fulfillment. She is his happily ever after, that he has a deep love for her. And the more she distances herself from him, the more he realizes how deep this connection goes, because he misses her from the depths of his being. He longs for her. He misses her, and he knows. And that's what he needs to know. He needs to listen to his intuition, not his mind. His intuition is telling him the truth, and he needs to listen to that truth, because once he really anchors that in, that she is his Queen of Cups, he can then stop listening to his ego mind and he can fully show up for the union. This will lead to him, sharing his wisdom about the unions, but also he is here to step into sharing his gifts, sharing his wisdom, sharing his knowledge. He's been called to step out, but the divine feminine also is to continue sharing her wisdom with others, what she's learning from the unions, what she's learning through her own journey, sharing her wisdom, inspiring others as well through this time. The Empress, he knows she's his Empress. And she's also to remain in her Empress energy, so not to go into, a lack, need, control, but to become this and embody this frequency. And then she attracts everything. She's so magnetic, and it's her magnetism that draws everything to her. And Divine Feminine actually becomes unforgettable. Like I wrote a quote the other day, the Divine Feminine is unforgettable. The Divine Masculines and any masculines that come into her life will never forget her, because her essence and her radiance and the energy that she leaves behind, her magic dust, is unforgettable, because it's just full of pure, unconditional love. And that's what she becomes highly magnetic and highly attractive by many masculines, soulmates, masculines. She does have some options at the moment. The Divine Feminine does have some options. She does have a soulmate union that she can tune into if she wants to, or she can continue on this path of this, divine union. Obviously, the divine union would be a much deeper love with a lot more triggering and soul lessons and soul growth. Or she can have a soulmate union, which is a lot more harmonious and flowing and doesn't have the depth of the triggers, the growth, and the lessons. So she has a choice to make what she chooses, or she may choose just to be on her own at this time. And Just be an observer, just flow with the energies and just see what comes her way. Like the Buddha, just let anything and everything just pass and stay in the flow of the energetics and enjoy the journey. She's letting go of the heaviness and the control and needing to know. She's stepping back and just going with the flow, being like water and going with the flow and coming back into more joy and lightness. And as she does this, that lifts the masculine up as well to come back into playfulness, joy, lightness, and connection. So that is where they're at this week. They, have been in the mind, but now they're both being called to take a deep breath, look at themselves, look at their programs, look at their abandonment wounds, and then take a deep breath and drop back into the heart and remember the love that connects them. Remember the love, the deep love, the bond that they've experienced through many lifetimes that connects them. That is what they're being asked to remember this week as they step towards the full moon, and to trust their intuition, not block their intuition, but listen to their intuition because their intuition is correct. So trust the intuition and listen to your intuition and then take the next step if you feel guided. Okay. All right, everyone. I will, speak to you soon and I'll bring another update shortly. So take care and I will speak to you soon.